Hello everyone, this is Turin here, and today guys I'm here with another Total War Warhammer live battlecast. In this game I'm going to be playing the Warriors of Chaos and I am facing off against the Dwarfs. So as far as my build goes, I do have the Mighty Warp Chicken. So the Warp Chicken with Plague of Rust has a little bit of a synergy with the Exalted Heroes. So Exalted Heroes, actually let me pause for just a moment. Exalted Heroes have okay weapon strength. Granted their armor piercing is somewhat low at 140. Granted I think that's more than like Empire Captains and stuff like that, but still what I like to do with this build is you get the Warp Chicken, then you use the Overcasted Plague of Rust, which gives negative 60 armor. It debuffs, Runesmiths, Thanes, all types of units like that down to about 50 or 60 armor, and then you get the two Exalted Heroes on them and they can actually perform pretty well. So I don't know if it's an optimal thing, but I definitely like to try it out a little bit. On top of that, 4 Chaos Marauders. They trade pretty efficiently with a lot of Dwarf Infantry, especially if he does bring, because intuitively speaking, if you're fighting against Chaos as Dwarves, you're going to bring great weapons, because you're thinking Armor, Chosen, well not Chosen, but Chaos Warriors, things like that. So these guys trade very efficiently because great weapons, if I'm not mistaken, do attack a little bit slower. So the density of the Chaos Marauders in conjunction with their armor piercing is quite strong. And again, a lot of you guys wanted Chosen, so I brought 3 Chosen. We'll see if we can make them work. 1 group of Forsaken, just to kind of pressure the flanks a little bit. Of course, Chariots are a staple in this matchup. And instead of bringing a Mansquard like I usually do to deal with like aerial threats and whatnot, I decided to bring just some Marauder Horsemen because the Chosen are very expensive. I think they're like, what are they, 13 or 1400, give or take? I use them so little. Like, I know most of the cost of almost all the units in the game, I would say, but for some reason, those very rarely used units, can't even recall their cost. So, oh, perfect. So a nice open field, which is good and bad. I mean, I suppose it's good for the Dwarves because like hills and forests and things like that are, very troublesome for the proud Dawi. So let's go ahead and get our Chosen set up like this. So we're going to have them kind of staggered in between the Chaos Marauders. Hopefully my opponent just assumes I have a Chaos Marauder line. A lot of times people just look at like what you have on the edge of your formation and be like, oh, okay, so, just Marauders. But there are indeed some very powerful Chosen mixed in there. We're going to put our Aspiring Heroes on, is that what they're called? Aspiring? Oh, Exalted Heroes, not Aspiring. But Exalted Heroes on both sides. We're going to put the Forsaken on the flank over here, and then the Chariots can be out on the far side over there. So let's go ahead and hotkey that formation like so. Put the Chariots in group 2, and these Marauder Horsemen right here can be, they can actually Vanguard, so we can put them up there in group 3. So great, we're ready to party. Good luck to my opponent. So my army is 650. His army is pretty small too. I mean, I did bring Chosen, so I mean that's going to lead to a very small army typically, but his army seems pretty small as well. So he probably has like Longbeards with great weapons and those type of units. So maybe a cannon. I definitely think that the Goblin Rocklobber is really good. It's or the Godlobber. It's incredibly powerful. Just against like heavily armored units like Chaos and against like Chosen and things like that, it's going to do some serious work. So the Warp Chicken is okay against the Dwarves. He struggles to finish off the Dwarf Lords like Kolek. That's what makes Kolek so good, is that Dwarf heroes are, if you guys see Dwarfs win, typically their entire army is dead. And they just have like Thorgrim and like a Thane and and 2 Runesmiths just running around gooning everything. So one of the biggest things that makes Kolek very strong is that he can goon those guys right back. He can actually get through with that 500 plus armor piercing weapon strength and just do some serious work. So excuse me guys, let me take a drink of water here. All right, back in business. So we like to get the Forsaken up around the flanks. We pressure with the Warp Chicken. We cast that Overcasted Plague of Rust, and usually does pretty well for us. So, all right, so let's go ahead and advance here. He does have some gyrocopters, so we need to, get our Marauder Horsemen down and around to intercept those guys. Thankfully, Warp Chicken does have really good missile resist, so if he does like decide to target that, then we should be okay. So Dwarf Warriors on the front line, they'll perform better than the Great Weapons against the Chaos Marauders, but the Chosen are just going to tear these guys to pieces. So he has a bit of a Death Star style build, which is going to be pretty decent. You can see he's actually targeting my Marauders with his cannon, which isn't bad because, again, if he's able to drive those guys off the battlefield, it's going to give his what's it called? The Gyrocopters free range. So I don't think he has any other ranged. He might have like Altar's Raiders or something like that over here. And I really wanted to bring Archaon for you guys, but against the Dwarves, like the magic damage, I couldn't justify it. Flaming Sword of Ruin isn't good against Dwarves either. It's just a complete wasted opportunity there. So I think he's actually targeting Warp Chicken with his artillery pieces. So we're going to run up here and get in range and start throwing some axes at these guys. And you can see the armor piercing is pretty good. Like 1 or 2 volleys really tears into those guys. So we have to be careful not to get, oh, we actually ran into Thunder range, totally was not paying attention, but regardless, we're going to come up and around. And I didn't see the Thunders at first, so they're doing some good damage, unfortunately, but you know what, you can't win them all, guys. So we're going to chase these guys right here, get on that Brimstone gun, just take the far wide route, and even if the Slayers chase the Chariot, it's not like a terrible situation. So great, so let's get these guys running up and around. We'll get these guys engaged in the front, these Chosen right here with the Exalted Hero. And we probably want to try and goon the Runesmith. I think that's going to be what we're going to really, aggressively try and do here. So we'll get those engaged here. These Chosen can go pressure the far side, and these Marauders can also come up and around. So my opponent doing a pretty good job of pressuring my Chariots. Let's actually pull these guys back for just a moment. And the Warp Chicken, we can go ahead and, do we want to cast anything here? I think we just go after the Thunders and try and shut those guys down. So great. So the cannon is a little bit exposed on the far side. You can see he's pulling some gyro action to come and try and shut those guys down. But we're actually going to charge our, excuse me, our cav into those guys and hopefully be able to do some pretty good work. So right now we'll pop a Transmutation of Lead right here, which is going to debuff a lot of my opponent's forces. Let's get our Exalted Heroes and have them go after that Runesmith. That's really what I want to goon right here. But you can see the Forsaken did get around, and for some reason these Chariots actually got caught. So let's force path those, make sure they're doing their thing. And it looks like we did get right onto that sweet juicy spot. And we're actually going to Plague of Rust. What do we want to Plague of Rust right now? I think we don't really need to, but the Forsaken going to get that cannon, which is going to be quite huge. We're going to pull the Chariots in as well. Yeah, we can pop the leadership, but we're kind of overwhelming his flanks. I don't know if he's going to really have enough to like deal with us. And we got into that front pretty well, and the Chosen seemed to be fighting, doing a good job. I mean, we crushed these Thunders like really aggressively. So these Chosen in the back, we want to get them running over here. These guys running over here, and Warp Chicken, we probably want to run over here. We can use a bombardment actually. He has a pretty big like kind of pocket of troops right here. So we're going to overcast that and see if we can get some work done. And you see the Runesmith's actually taking a little bit of damage from those Exalted Heroes, so that's pretty good. So what we're going to do is actually we're going to overcast the Plague of Rust. We're going to get these guys going after the Runesmith, and we'll also bring the Warp Chicken over and try and goon him real quick. So great. So the Chariots, totally forgot about those, but you know what? It's okay, guys. We can't remember everything. So we're going to charge in there. We do have some Chaos Marauders coming around the back, so let's go ahead and engage them on these Slayers. The Chosen here can also assist with that, and the Chosen will just massacre Slayers. They have way too much armor for the Slayers to deal with, and their combat stats are incredibly good. So great. So Thorgrim is overchasing a little bit. Definitely a bit of a mistake from my opponent. We got the Warp Chicken in here with his Exalted Heroes, and they're doing some work on this Runesmith. Chariots are coming in the back, and even though I wasn't like effective with my Chariots, my opponent's been allocating a ton of his attention onto this guy, and it's just been chasing him nonstop. And you can see Warp Chicken plus Plague of Rust plus the Exalted Heroes are really good for like nuking down those Dwarf Heroes. So in the back, the Forsaken killed the cannon, so we'll go ahead and pull those guys in here. And what we'll do when they engage right here is we're going to actually cast another Plague of Rust here in just a moment. So where do we have some troops? We have our Marauders right here, so we're going to switch them back to range, just to make sure they're doing their job. And the Warp Chicken's going to fly in here pretty hot and heavy. And we'll go ahead and, yeah, let's just save for that Plague of Rust. But we do kill that Runesmith, which is great. Forsaken coming in here. So I really want to get that Plague of Rust going, but we're going to actually cast Bombardment right on top of those Grumbling Guard. We're going to pull these troops in here. Chariot, we're going to get up and out like here. And actually, we can do a little bit of a roundabout. And that's actually pretty good. Like, you guys saw that did some heavy damage to those guys. So overcasting this is really cheap. I think it's like 6. So we'll overcast it here on these Dwarf Warriors. That'll just let them get massacred, basically. And Warp Chicken and the boys are doing pretty good. We have our Chariots here, and we can just have them throw at these guys, or actually we probably want to have them come up and around here and go after that Gyrocopter. So let's check for some routing troops. We do have some Chaos Marauders that are routed. And our Chariots have just been getting focused like pretty heavily by his piece up there, by those Gyrocopters. So they've taken a bit of damage, but it's nothing we can't handle. So we'll get our Exalted Heroes, have them go after this other Runesmith, and we're going to pull the Warp Chicken back. We don't want Thorgrim to get any freebies, and we just have a huge blob of Chosen here. So the Chosen will do a pretty good job of cutting through this guy for the most part. So yeah, right now the Chariots are just kind of riding down the Slayers a little bit, but we probably don't want to use them over there. We'll use them in the main pocket, and we'll just have these Marauders kind of slowly finish those guys off. Great. So we have this big pocket of troops here that was able to just collapse. And right now, the Dwarves pretty much only have, excuse me, for some reason my voice is a little bit lost today, but he only has his leadership left. So he has like Thorgrim, and like I mentioned earlier, in a lot of Dwarf games, you're pretty much just going to see the Dwarf leadership in just like a last stand type scenario. I think Chaos has a really good matchup versus the Dwarves. I think it's hard for the Dwarves to win it, for sure. So we're going to pull back this way. We don't want to be fighting the Warp Chicken versus Thorgrim. Thorgrim, even though he might not, like, on paper seem like a commander that is there. Well, I'm not playing Magic the Gathering, but a Lord that isn't necessarily a duelist. He has outstanding combat stats. So we're going to Plague of Rust him right now. And we have the 2 Exalted Heroes headed beating on him, and you can see he's already taking a little bit more burst damage. My opponent dropping some bombs, definitely giving me a little bit of trouble. So we're able to finish off the Slayers for the most part. And the Gyrocopters, we should get our Marauders on those guys. And let's see what we got around here. So he does have some troops coming back, so let's go ahead and get those guys re-engaged. We'll pull these guys over here. And I think we got this battle under control. The bounce power is starting to shift in our favor. Warp Chicken's in pretty good shape, but I didn't really take advantage of Warp Chicken's like charge. Like, he's incredibly good at like charging around the battlefield and just being a fat troll. So, but look at that Plague of Rust. I mean, Thorgrim usually takes forever to kill, but with this he only has 60 armor, and he has 2 like fairly durable hero units kind of just beating on him. So we get a good little charge in there. We're going to charge back in here, and the Marauders, we can just have them throw into the back of these guys. We have a group of Chosen coming in here. They're actually able to just shadow those guys, and it looks like that's going to be all she wrote for the Dwarves. So let's go ahead and take a look at the army breakdown, and we can go from there. I think he has some Slayers still fighting, actually. Let's see. So you have some Slayers lurking out and about. But yeah, I think we did a pretty good job of highlighting the Lord Metal with the Exalted Heroes. it's a good, I think it's a decent niche against the dwarves, and obviously the what's it called, the chosen did well because they weren't punished before they got there, and that's one of the biggest things you run into. Oh my goodness, are these slayers really just running off the battlefield? Or I think they're actually chasing the marauders. It's hard to tell if my opponent is just trolling me or if they're just going to be scurrying this direction, but we got the warp chicken hot in pursuit. He's going to pop this leadership buff if he needs to. But yeah, there's only how many slayers left? 6. So the Forsaken should catch them, thankfully. So the anti-trolling measures have been getting engaged, guys. We can plague Rust. How much armor do slayers have? Yeah, they have any? They have 0. So I don't think they can go negative. But just to send a message, we're going to go ahead and cast Plague Rust here and hopefully put those guys down. So we can watch Warp Chicken in action. He's got his big leap there. He's got his talents. Looks like he got that slayer on the way in. So yeah, well played to my opponent. It was a fun battle. Definitely got to use Chosen, make them work. I mean, 139, 107, 92, that's really good. I mean, the Chaos Marauders performed well, but the Chosen did their job. Because, again, they weren't really targeted or punished like prior to the fighting, so I was really able to get my maximum value out of those guys. But again, well played to my opponent, Linus. Look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that Warp Chicken cast. Have an excellent night, and take care.